The roots of education are bitter, but the fruit is sweet. This quote from Aristotle is brutally honest yet hopeful. As the beginnings of the education process were formed, the idea of a structured method of education was put into place. This foundation was flawed. It was not created with equality in mind, and it neglected to administer to all people. The United Nations goal that will be discussed today is quality education. This goal ensures inclusive education for all, regardless of background, race, ability, or gender. Schools worldwide have come a long way in regards to education equality, but there is still a long way left to go. This presentation will discuss the challenges that exist today in the United States and around the world. It will look at the advances that are being made in order to help bring quality education to all, and it will discuss what needs to be done in order to help achieve this goal of quality education. To reach this goal, everyone must work together, meaning governments and everyday people. Until society can get to that point of working together, the goal remains, quote, ensure inclusive and quality education for all and promote lifelong learning. And this quote was pulled directly from the United Nations Sustainable Development website. So why is this goal so hard to reach? Well, there are many challenges that stand in the way and directly contribute to this problem of inequality in education. School segregation, working children, ill-prepared educators, violence and bullying, young women being wed, the cost of education. These all play a significant part in limiting or completely stifling a child's right to education. These challenges are not to be taken lightly, and they deserve a voice behind them, explaining the true extent and impact they are making on the youth worldwide. When a problem is not directly seen or talked about, it is forgotten. Therefore, each one of these will be further discussed in detail. The first challenge directly hones in on the bitter roots that Aristotle spoke of. This is school segregation. Stemming back to the beginnings of education in America, education was not made to be equal. Students of color were not allowed to attend a school where white children were in attendance, and it was not until 1954, during the Brown v. Board of Education Supreme Court case, that the segregation of children in public schools was deemed unconstitutional, meaning that up until that point, America did not see it necessary to educate equally across races. The article shared by Coleman goes into detail on the educational opportunities, or lack thereof, given to minorities prior to the Civil Rights Movement. The efforts of all of those involved in supporting the Civil Rights Movement is seen today in the integrated school system in America. So is the UN goal of equal education met? Not even close. In actuality, even in the newly formed school institutions, there is still a large inequality seen between minority and non-minority students. Although children of color are now educated under the same roof, it is evident through analyzing data from United States schools that African American, Hispanic, and children with disabilities are consistently scoring lower than their peers across the board. This integration did not fully equalize students across race and also shows the inequality of students across different learning styles. This brings the next challenge, known as shadow education. There are many discrepancies that can be associated with this notion of free education for all. And although public education is provided as a right to all children in the United States, there has become a shift for outside tutoring to become increasingly commonplace. Sadly, minorities are often of a lower economic status than their white peers. This is making a gap between underprivileged children who cannot afford it and the privileged children who can, and this is known as shadow education. This disadvantage does not stem from the learning in the institution directly. It is often the result of the educational opportunities outside of school. Higher income families are more likely to enroll their children in summer camps and activities during their time off school. This includes things like zoos, museums, science centers, and so on. Whereas children from lower income families often have working parents who cannot take them to these outside activities or cannot afford them. Student scores in the United States are shared to the public through the KDE School Report Card. This is in Kentucky. This resource allows the website visitor to access the specific counties and schools and analyze their student data. This data provided on the website is categorized into subgroups of males, females, African Americans, Hispanics, and students with disabilities. The result of shadow education is directly seen in this data, and this gap does not prove to be closing anytime soon. education is still quite unequal. As mentioned earlier, students with disabilities are consistently scoring lower than their peers. This is challenge number 3 in regards to reaching quality and equal education. Providing students with disabilities the tools they need to be successful seems to be a foreign act to some teachers as a result of lack of training. In some instances, there has been no effort made to teach off script, and teachers are doing nothing to help these students. This results in children being left behind with no way to catch up, and is furthering the educational gap. The United States is not the only place that faces this inequality in education. It is seen all over the world. The 4th challenge that will be discussed is poverty. While this was touched on in terms of low economic class in the United States, it is also seen all around the world on a much more global scale. Many places in poverty see children working laborious jobs rather than receiving an education, simply because the need for these children to help their families maintain the bare necessities for survival. Children begin working at a young age and continue working through adulthood, never taking time off to receive education. For some, the sheer cost of education is high, including textbooks, bus fare, school clothes, and so on. This is too much to send a child to school when a family is in fact suffering in poverty. In many cases, families cannot escape this cycle of poverty. If someone is born into it, the odds are immediately stacked against them, drastically slanting the quality of education. The 5th disadvantage in reaching this goal of equal education is travel. Some students need to travel far distances in order to get to school, and often this travel is done on foot. This problem can lead to increased absenteeism due to weather or other unseen obstacles. This issue of travel is seen in the busing system across the United States as well. In order to diversify the culture of the school, students are bused from one part of town to another. In theory, this allows students from one section of the city to meet and learn alongside students from another section, widening their exposure to people of different backgrounds and races. This travel, however, results in a lack of sleep, and this may be added on many missed hours of sleep due to parents' work schedules, conflicts, an unstable home life, or many other factors that students are facing every day. A child needs to get 7 to 8 good hours of sleep every night, and this travel takes away from that and adds to a student's rates of misbehavior, lack of attention, and lack of motivation during the school day. Home after school is a problem as well. After a long day of school, students will often go on to sit on the bus for upwards of 2 hours trying to get home. Next is the 6th disadvantage, which has been at the forefront of media lately. This is the violence and bullying that is often seen in schools. This has become a very readily seen problem in the United States schools specifically. Many school systems are implementing a zero-tolerance policy to help, but until this problem is solved, some students are more worried about their safety than their education. This can lead to skipping classes or not being in full concentration while they are in class. Depending on home situation, students may look at school as being their safe zone, where the place they go that they can feel comfortable and not at harm. This apparent risk of being attacked by bullies can turn this comfort into fear. It does not end at the school door either. The bullying is often brought home with them due to the large use of technology in this generation. Social media has become a platform for negative comments to peers and can become the gossip of the classroom when students are in school, taking away from students' concentration. Not only do students worry about their popularity and acceptance amongst their peers, but they also have to worry about the dangers of the outside world. Schools have become a horrible target to attackers, which has caused a fear for students and faculty. There is no way to create equality within schools if students constantly have the feeling that their safety is at risk when they are in school. The 7th disadvantage has a great impact on young girls within certain countries. These girls are being forced to marry and have children at a very young age, completely dismissing the idea of school altogether to become a homemaker. There are so many more challenges in this goal being reached, including not having the proper facilities in order to educate our children. Much of history was a time of separate and unequal learning amongst children. It is not over. This United Nations goal of equal education is a high bar to be set, and as seen through these challenges that I've just discussed, it will not be reached easily. Amongst these challenges comes a solution, something that can make this goal a reality. The United Nations has been instrumental in identifying the rights of the parent and the child in the education process. Worldwide, Ingold says, parents have the right to have a say in the type of education their child receives. This has been established through the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the European Convention on Human Rights. This is a vital first step to achieving this goal. The United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child has established similar guidelines that outline the rights of the child. These keep in mind that as an adult, each person has the right to have been given the foundation to make a fruitful life for him or herself. This includes children of poverty, young children who are working to help provide for their families, or young women who are being married at a young age. Each of these children is granted the same rights. The education in the United States, likewise, is working to identify and support the shortcomings of its current education system. New teachers are required to learn about inclusion education to ensure that no child is left behind, regardless of income level, learning style, disability, or race. Existing teachers are required to attend continuing education hours to learn how to reach every child in their class. Studies are being done regularly, such as the Shadow Education Study done by BrainQuo that shows the gap between children who receive outside tutoring and those who do not. McGill-Franzen shows the relationship between having a home library and the success in reading achievement. This study has led many school systems to providing free books of the appropriate reading level to students who would otherwise not have them. Having the knowledge of why the gap exists helps educators know how to solve the problem. Once this goal is reached, every child will have the dignity of a good education. Every child will have equal opportunities to every other child, regardless of their background. Every adult will have the skills and training needed to obtain gainful employment and be able to provide adequately for themselves and their families. The future will be a fair and prosperous place, full of opportunities and success. Through this IDC course, a repeated theme has appeared through readings and articles. It has stood out above all, and that is the concept of teamwork and collaboration. There is no simple fix or solution to this goal. However, teamwork and collaboration seem to be the key. Parents, governments, and the everyday person all need to work together to achieve this very important goal of quality education. One person cannot do it alone. One city cannot do it alone. These teachings need the support of our whole world. Each person, family, community, state, and country needs to hold these to the same importance in order for something positive to come of it. Specifically, people can take steps starting in their own community. It does not take being an educator in order to have an influence on this goal. People can donate their resources and time to centers in their city that help the youth. Parents can become involved and invested in their child's education. Individual citizens can push government officials to support the efforts of the United Nations. This support will help reduce poverty levels around the world simply by working to help students complete secondary education. For this course, the true importance of being the voice of change has become evident, whether that's the voice for your own personal passion or to be the voice for someone else. If a person sees something as being truly positive and a betterment for humankind, they need to be heard. A single person can do great things, but it is their influence on more people and more people after that that can truly create the chain reaction that makes a change. Right now, we need to be the voice for these children and create a quality education worldwide.